everyone. This is probably the second last session of the day, and I promise a very interesting next 1 hour with a fantastic panel on a topic that I think would probably resonate with most of you. The topic is building consortiums of stakeholders to drive energy innovation. So what we are talking about here is how do you leverage strategic partnerships to really make a difference in the world of energy. The panel that I have with me is comprising of Rajarshi Gupta, MD ONGC Videsh Ltd, Shivanand Nibbargi, MD and CEO Ayana Renewables, Akhil Mehrotra, who's the MD and CEO of Pipeline Infrastructure Limited, Saloma Yomdo, who's the Executive Director, Oil India Limited, and last but not the least, Vinay Malhotra, MD, India, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka for SLB. So with that, let me just quickly give a context of what we are trying to cover here. I think there's no doubt that strategic partnerships are, or consortiums are important in many businesses to make them successful. But in our sector, which is the energy sector, what makes them particularly important is because of two very simple reasons. The very high level of complexity that we have, the amount of cost as well as technology related challenges that we have make it imperative for people to collaborate. And collaborate they have in the past. In fact, by the time this session ends, I'm presuming all of this group will walk away with the understanding that these consortiums and strategic partnerships work very well in the energy sector. There are multiple success stories that we hopefully will talk about. At the same time, we'll also realize that they are not the be-all, end-all of everything in the energy space. There have been examples where they have not been successful. So we'll also hopefully learn from what is it that has led to the failures and what is it that we can learn from them. And from this very distinguished group of 5 gentlemen here, we'll also get to know what is the secret sauce of making them successful. So without further ado, let me move to Rajarshi and kind of kick the things off. So Rajarshi, if I may ask you, OVL, which is now Navratna, has built a phenomenal track record for itself. In some ways riding on some of these consortiums and strategic partnerships. So wanted to get a sense from you, what is it that you've done right? Why have you, OVL in particular and even ONGC, which has been your organization for a long time, gone for these partnerships? And what is it that has led them to be successful?
Very good afternoon, and to all my panelists here, Saurabh to you. If we look at ONGC Videsh, we are in the international business arena where we have to win every single square meter of acreage that we are in. Today we are in 18 countries, 15 of which we have our assets. We are the second largest E&P company in India, producing about 11 million tons of oil and gas. And we have to compete with the best in the business, be it the NOCs, IOCs or the oil majors. But one thing we learned very early in our journey is, at the end of it, there are no competitors. At the end of it, there are no vendors. At the end of it, there is only one thing, and that is called partners. If we are not into this together, in collaboration, in partnerships, with our vendors, with our consortium partners, with the host government, with the regulators, it doesn't work. It has worked for us in many places, and in some places where we were not able to seek the right partner, it didn't go right. So we saw both sides of the coin, and thankfully from getting from zero to this position now in less than 2 decades has been phenomenal. But we have now understood very clearly that as transition is happening, as volatility in prices are happening, as geopolitics is at its highest, we have to do more collaboration, more cooperation, and we have to do it across the value chain. One mantra that we are also now advocating with our partners is we will not do only transactional business. It will be more strategic alliances across the value chain.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you for setting the context. Before I move to Shiv and ask him a bit more about, why clean energy, the sector that he works in right now, is so amenable to strategic partnerships and his perspectives on it, let me share an anecdote with you. I'm a keen student of history, and as once we got to know the topic of this, I started looking back at the history of the energy sector and tried to figure out what is it, how have these consortiums and strategic partnerships really been successful. Now, incidentally, in this group, there is nobody who represents the refining sector. So let me be their representative and share an example with you, which hopefully illustrates how this has been successful. So I'm going back almost 70 years in time, and I'm talking about how the fluidized catalytic cracker came into being. I'm sure any refinery person here would know what an FCC is and how critical it is to a refinery. And there are almost 400 of them which are operating all over the world right now. What's interesting is all 400 of them, they trace their origins back to one FCC unit, the Model 1 unit at the Baton Rouge in Louisiana. They own their origins to it. Interestingly, that particular asset was formed as a result of a strategic partnership between Standard Oil, which eventually became ExxonMobil. There was Amoco, Anglo-Iranian Oil, which was BP, Texas Oil, which was Texaco, and Dutch Shell. So these 5 guys, they came together along with UOP, Kellogg, and MIT together to figure out the FCC technology that we use today. The interesting thing is not, how these guys came together. The question is why. At that point in time, there was a burning platform. The burning platform simply was there was another player who was developing a similar technology, but it was on a fixed bed reactor, and they wanted something which was continuous, and they were being charged a very high license fee. So they came together and said, we need to develop it. The reason why the partnership got accelerated was because those were the times of the Second World War, and they realized that they needed a lot more jet fuel, which needed a technology like FCC. So the limited point I'm making is, you need the right impetus to form some of these partnerships. And if there is a burning platform, people do come together and people do amazing things together. Now, Shiv, after this very long preamble, I would say the clean energy sector is probably in that phase where there is a burning platform. There is energy transition that is happening. People are clamoring for more efficient and cheaper sources of clean energy. The question is, how do you see this? Is this platform burning enough? And how are these strategic partnerships being formed?
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh, and pleasure to be with the co-panelists here. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be speaking at the India Energy Week. I had spoken in Bangalore last year too. So coming to the issue of partnerships, I guess for any project or any venture to be successful is dependent on partnership. So I would just like to elaborate this partnership is not necessarily related to the vendors or, as mentioned earlier, it's all, end of the day, it has to be a win-win situations in which things have got to work. For the sector that we are in, clean energy, our biggest partner is government, whether it is government of India or the state governments. So we are quite happy to see that the support that we get from the government today to get the energy transition going and the projects going up is incredible. For example, the ministry under which we actually work, MNRE, conducts a monthly review with all the developers on a month-on-month basis, tracking all the issues. So that clearly demonstrates, one aspect of the partnership approach from the government and the keenness of the government that is clearly exhibited to achieve the targets in terms of the energy transition. Now moving on towards, the areas in terms of technology and other areas. So There has been an encouragement in terms of getting the technology into the country on the manufacturing for the domestic modules through production-based linked incentive schemes, which is actually pushing, getting the manufacturing up. The technology is going to come up, which is going to make India self-reliant in terms of the supply chains. So that's one big element. Now, as we speak, we are moving towards offshore wind turbines, a new technology area. There again, we are exploring partnerships with, European and other, developers who have got experience in this field, and to work and co-develop all these areas here. And other similar new technologies that are coming up are on the storage side, both on the pump storage, on the battery storage technology side, to be able to work and provide opportunities. So we all developers are looking at various partnerships, and all these things are going to be successful only through way of this partnership. And the other big thing that is actually likely to happen in the coming years is on the green ammonia and green hydrogen. India aspires to be the export hub for green ammonia. So there's a lot of work already started and a lot of partnerships getting announced there. So as we can see now, India is, the biggest destination in terms of the energy transitions and the partnership opportunities. So partnerships are going to make a big way in terms of, getting these technologies, innovations, and also partnerships is, other than these areas, is also the financial partnerships, which is extremely critical because most of these projects require a lot of capital. So all in all, I think the sector is attracting a lot of partnerships, as I mentioned, on all these areas. And, we see a lot more happening in this sector going forward.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shiv, for this response. Shifting gears, and I'll go to Saloma now. So one of the things that's happening as a result of energy transition is the convergence of molecule and electron. Incidentally, even on this stage right now, we have both kinds of players. And one of the things that's happening as a result is also tie-ups between the molecule and the electron players. For example, I think OIL recently signed an MOU with NTPC. I mean, one operating in the molecule domain, the other in the electron. How do you see these kind of partnerships evolving? What has been your experience so far?
Thank you, Saurabh, for the question, and thank you to India Energy Week for having Oil India here as a panelist. Coming down straight to your question, convergence of electrons and molecules, that's a very catchy word. I've heard it for the first time, actually. But coming back to your question, we had a strategic deal with NTPC, since you mentioned NTPC, where we have actually signed a memorandum of understanding recently. And the reason for that is, again, because if you see the CO2 emissions in the country, the power sector is the biggest emitter. And then NTPC has their thermal power plants, 25 or 27 of them, spread all across the country. So geographically, they are located all over. And when I say all over the country, in terms of subsurface, because we are from the oil and gas industry, in terms of subsurface, it covers 26 sedimentary basins of India. And when it covers 26 sedimentary basins of India, the first thing that everyone has been talking since the morning in the CCUS, a beautiful CCUS workshop we had today, was the source and sink matching. So when you strategically analyze the various stations where NTPC has the thermal power plants, compare it with the 26 sedimentary basins which are mapped in the country, then they come as a source, and as a sink, as a subsurface oil and gas operator, we are the biggest experts in this, where we can determine which particular subsurface reservoir is a proper candidate for permanent storage of CO2. And with that, it's going to be a big exercise. I mean, this is not an easy task. It'll take some time. And therefore, that is the whole idea, that to bring the source and sink to close proximity, and especially in those areas or in those sedimentary basins, if we are having a lease, operating lease, then it becomes much more convenient for us, where we can easily tap into the source close by. So not only NTPC, actually, we are also working with other sectors, like with IOCL. We're trying to partner for getting CO2 from the Digboi refinery. We are trying to partner with NRL, who is a subsidiary of Oil India itself. We are trying to also partner with HPCL, who are doing tremendous R&D in terms of carbon capture. So all these are going on in parallel, even with multinationals like Linde, who have a very strong, who are one of the biggest gas business firms in the world. So again, it's a strategic partnership. They come with the surface experience, we come with the subsurface experience, and there can be a time when we can even be equity partners in this. So those are the things that are currently going on in terms of energy transition within Oil India.
And thanks, Saloma, for this response. If I may, there are 2 or 3 things that truly make a strategic partnership successful. One of them, which Saloma has touched upon very beautifully, is the element of complementarity. The fact that I have something the other person does not, and therefore we come together and make it whole, which does make a big difference. There are, of course, other elements of it which we'll hopefully touch upon as we, in the subsequent round of questions. So with that, let me move to Akhil, who's been an ONG practitioner and who's worked in different parts of the value chain for many years now. So Akhil, I'll take you back in time a bit, right? While these partnerships are not new, the context has changed a bit now, right, with energy transition and whatnot. So in the last 20 odd years, do you see a change in the way these partnerships are being forged, or anything else that may have changed, or are things still the same when people go about these developing these partnerships?
Sure. Thank you for, I think, good evening all. See, let me set the context that in terms of why do we require partnership first, and then I'll talk of what has changed as you discussed in the last 20 years. Primary reason, and we discussed it partly, that maybe you require technology, you need partners for that, you may require capital, you may require risk sharing, because we are in energy industry, and risk sharing was a big thing that we brought partners for. And in current practices, you may need a lot of technology on Gen AI and all that. So I think there are various reasons why we need partners. Now, if we move back 20 years, I see that Indian energy companies brought partners for technology part, because we are much behind the curve as far as technology was concerned. So we brought a lot of partners, and we have examples in upstream, midstream, downstream, where we brought in partners which helped us in bridging the technology gap which India had. And that was the key strategic requirement, as well as some, if I have to say, trained resources, which was not there in the country. If I have to move fast forward 20 years as we sit today, there's a lot of new things that are happening, and good thing for India is we have caught up on the technology side. While a lot of R&D is happening internationally on the newer fuels, including renewables, we also partner to that. So now the partnership is more, I'll say, on equal basis, where we are partnering with a lot of companies across the world to actually jointly do a research and development to develop newer technology, cheaper kind of ways of bringing down my energy cost kind of. So that's a big difference, which I can say is there from past 20 years till now, where we are now more on an equal footing as the country, basically. Yeah.
Very interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
Let me now move to Vinay. And Vinay, as SLB, anyways, you have a global presence, and as I was looking at your track record, you've partnered with public sector players, NOCs all over the world. You've also partnered with, private sector players, IOCs and so on. And more recently, I see a lot of technology-related partnerships also that you've been forging. So the question is, how different is it to deal with these diverse kind of entities? And how do you go about doing it?
So, thank you, Saurabh. A very warm afternoon to everybody. And thank you to India Energy Week for letting us participate in this prestigious panel. So this topic of collaboration and partnership and consortium is very, very dear to our heart. And I'll take an example from each of the 3 pillars which SLB is currently participating in, because the examples help us set the context correctly. So the three pillars which SLB has rebranded itself is under core oil and gas, under digital solutions, and under new energy. So in the core oil and gas, I will really take the lead from your comment, Saurabh, which was around the burning platform. With the energy transition ongoing, with the every E&P operator looking for the lowest dollar per meter or dollar per barrel, the partnerships have become even more important, whether it is upstream to us, which is, let's say, drilling rig providers, either in onshore or offshore environment, or downstream to us, sometimes with the offshore logistics companies. So these partnerships, these consortiums, we are forming more and more compared to, let's say, 10 years back or 15 years back, because that is the need of the hour to bring the best cost to our customers, and also to bring the project fast forward. Now, if I take an example from the middle pillar, which is the digital pillar, this is where I feel the most action is happening today. First of all, we need reliable cloud providers, and which we have many of them. So we have strong global partnerships with all the big cloud providers. But then comes the more tactical stuff, because we are good at our domain, which is oil and gas. But we need partnerships across other providers. Let's say if I take an example of Cognite, who is giving us that data platform so that we are able to enable the workflows which our customers are looking for, or even partners like Accenture, who are able to accelerate this journey going from the existing platforms to the new platform. Those partnerships eventually are so needed, because in this current world, we are not able to depend only on our expertise. And if we try to develop all the expertise, we will just lose a lot of time. And lastly, a very quick example from the new energy portfolio of our business, which is around carbon capture, which comes very naturally to us from the subsurface knowledge. But when we have to capture those, capture the carbon, we are not good at that. We have never done that. And that's where we form partnerships with companies like Linde, as Saloma sir just mentioned, so that we are able to provide an integrated solution to the customer's need. So now coming exactly to the answer which you are looking for, I guess what is needed and what drives us is eventual customer performance, how we can achieve our customers' objectives in the best fashion, in the lowest cost fashion, in the fastest time period to delivery. And one thing we do need, whether it's a public partnership or a private partnership, is to put a project management layer on top. Because when you bring these diverse set of skill sets together, we need to still integrate them to provide the ultimate solution to the customer. And that's where we also feel very proud that with our 3 decades of project management, we are able to convert all these partnerships into the final deliverable which our customer is looking for. So that probably is the key difference, to align with the customer's objective and to make sure that that project layer, the project management layer, is put on top so that we deliver to those objectives.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vinay. And this, I think, is also a key success factor that makes some of these partnerships really tick. Because, and as we'll probably discuss later on during the session, there's almost a race right now to sign MOUs. But unfortunately, not all of them become successful. And part of the reason that Vinay has also alluded to is the absence of this layer that really makes it successful. And if I may add to it, it is the leadership commitment. Because just signing something is not enough. The leadership has to be genuinely committed to the cause, and also build that layer to kind of really track and make sure that the partnership is successful. Let me now move to Saloma, and the question is somewhat similar but from your vantage point. If I look at it, you've obviously collaborated with public sector players like ONGC, GAIL, IOCL, but you've also collaborated with private entities like Geopetrol, GeoEnpro, JEPL, and so on, right? And they are in some ways like chalk and cheese. So the question is, what distinguishes these types of collaborations? And if I may ask, is there a preference for one over the other?
Do you really expect an honest answer from me in this forum? Very, very tricky question, but then very, very important as well. Partnerships, yes, we have had very, very good, strong partnerships with the national oil companies in India, especially with the names you have said already, IOCL, ONGC, GAIL. And of course, the strong point in having these partnerships with the NOCs is that when two NOCs like say oil or IOC or oil or ONGC, they go together to the government, two national oil companies, major players of the country, it makes a difference. So the government will listen, right? Second thing is this sort of partnerships, you are saying our experience, what I have experienced, it becomes very, very convenient for us because the other partner comes in with scale, so they have scalability. They come with huge amount of experience, and then they also come with huge amount of expertise, and most importantly, they also come with capital. So those things are guaranteed. And for example, if I want to break it up, for exploration and development, it would make an amazing partnership for me, for Oil India, sorry. Now, you mentioned about private players in India with whom we have worked. You have mentioned about Geopetrol, Jubilant, Geoenpro. Well, there are a couple of JVs in the Northeast where we are working with the HOEC, Dirok Block and the Kharsang, where we are there with private operators like Geopetrol. Now we are with the partners with HOEC, Invernair Energy. And that partnership is again strategically totally different. And you can very well imagine that, like it or not, a lean and thin organization works very, very effectively. The bureaucracy is very, very limited, if I'm permitted to say that. Procurement, contractual process are also pretty much very, very streamlined and very, very fast. I mean, I have to be honest with that. I mean, you have to accept the fact. For a field like Kharsang, when it went for a JV, the production increased 5x times. So it speaks for itself. But then that's a good strategy for having in your as a partner when there is a field that you are actually trying to produce. So I want to break it up that way, that for exploration and development, and then for production, we would like to split it up. And if you say what would be my preference, I would prefer depending on the particular situation. So whether it is this exploration and development portfolio that I'm looking at, or am I looking at a portfolio where I want to enhance or increase production through JVs or maybe through the production enhancement contracts that we have put up recently, and where we have also been getting tremendous response. So to me, I would like the best of both worlds.
Great. I think you navigated this really well. Thank you. Let me now move to Shiv, and as I'd given in the example of FCC, some of the most groundbreaking work around partnerships has happened even when some of the competitors come together, right? And even in your case, there are examples of you tying up with peers, in some cases potential competitors as well, right? So how has that experience been? Does it really make for successful partnerships?
Yeah, I think that's right, Saurabh. I think we actually see a lot of collaboration amongst the peers also. For example, Ayana entered into an agreement with Greenco on the storage. That's the first of kind of an agreement in the country. That's a partnership which is going to make a huge difference in terms of energy transition. The partnership we have with Greenco is about utilizing the pumped hydro storage services from them, which enables us to provide the round-the-clock solutions to various customers. In fact, utilizing that partnership, we are providing 300 megawatt round-the-clock to Indian Railways. And interestingly, that partnership helped us to bridge another partnership with Hindalco Industries in being able to give them a 100 megawatt round-the-clock solution for their plant in Orissa, where they are setting up the smelter. So it's not about competition or anything. It's end of the day coming together for a common cause, which is a win-win situation to be able to provide these solutions. And also with peers, we do work in terms of optimizing the cost on the transmission lines and substations. So we have, we compete in a bid, but end of the day, after winning the competition, we set up a plant at a particular location. We have partnership to share the infrastructure on the transmission line and the substation. So I guess we compete, but there is also scope for partnerships to work together And that's how the industry is growing.
Fantastic. No, thank you for sharing this. And I'll move to Akhil and ask him a similar question, because even with your organization, there have been some recent tie-ups in the hydrogen space, very nascent, very cutting edge work. How does that work when you're operating in such nascent areas? What's your experience been?
So it's normally, if you see in hydrogen space, and just to clarify, it's more of hydrogen blending with methane. Now this was a risk to our business, so we are converting into an opportunity. We're trying to look at, and we have signed some MOUs, but beyond that also, we are collaborating with some of the international players, because this is one space where a lot of research and development is happening as we speak. How we can blend hydrogen in these pipelines, what is the effect of blending on the metallurgy, and kind of like embrittlement was a big threat, as well as we have a lot of turbines and compressors. So what we have done is we have found that who are the best players in the world. If you see, if name some, DNV is doing a great work in this area. We have collaborated with them. National Grid in UK is doing a lot of real testing on the ground. So we have also collaborated with them to understand what their experience is, because they are 2 years ahead of us in terms of testing. Good thing about this is that all of these, some of the agencies like National Grid and all, which are into similar business, they're happy to share the results and also make it public. So we, rather than reinventing the wheel, what we're trying to do is start from where they're leaving, and then trying to learn from that and take it ahead. So it becomes a win-win situation for not only for us as a country, but across the world, where the methane pipelines, natural gas pipelines are not fully utilized. We can use it to an early advantage for hydrogen blending, because when you start producing green hydrogen, you may not have the, in bulk, you will not have the pipelines to transport it. You can use the current infrastructure, which is scarce, blend it and kind of transport it. So we have found areas, opportunities in this area, and also tried to find out people in the consulting space, the developers, the kind of transportation companies in the world. And this is more particularly in Europe and UK, which we are partnering to find a solution to this year.
Fantastic. Thank you. Now I'm going to put all the panelists in a bit of a spot and ask them a very a rapid fire question. And Rajarshi, I'm going to start with you. The question is, in your experience, right, and it may or may not be directly with the company you're currently working at, which has been the most innovative or disruptive or successful partnership that you can think of? And I'll ask the same question of everybody in the group. Will be just good for our audience to get some very interesting examples.
Okay, before we come to the OVL example, I just wanted to give a few. The Northern Lights CCUS project, we are talking a lot about CCUS, is a classic example of CCUS collaboration. 8 countries, 3 majors, 80% government funding, the biggest CCUS project of the world. Fantastic. You talk of energy innovation, you talk of collaboration, it cannot get better. 2 projects started by our Honorable Prime Minister is the Indian International Solar Alliance and the International Biofuel Alliance. I think would become great collaborations. One thing that is going to develop, and it will be a game changer again announced by the Honorable Prime Minister, is the solar rooftop scheme. Just imagine 10 million households having their own solar panels on the top of their houses, producing their electricity, freeing the grid, selling it back to the grid. Can there be any bigger collaboration and any bigger innovation? So these were not of my company, but one example that OVL was a classic case was, we were bidding for a company acquisition way back in 2006. There were 10 bidders. It was a fantastic company which we wanted badly. At the end of 1 or 2 rounds, we and the Chinese were left as fierce competitors, and we were bidding higher and higher. We went up to $1 billion, and then suddenly wisdom struck on us. There was some channels which are opened, and we started talking to each other. We brought down the price from 100 to less than 800. We took the company 50-50, and you won't believe it, 50-50 when nobody has the steering wheel. We are running that company successfully for 17 years. So with our fiercest competitors, we became collaborators, we became joint owners of a company. We produced more oil and gas than it was being produced. We got all our money back. And if collaboration can do anything in a new country like Colombia, we were successful. And so, as I said, there are only partners, no competitors here.
Fantastic, fantastic examples. And I'm sure this gives a lot of food for thought for the audience. Shiv, no pressure, but your example.
Yeah, sure. I think, as I mentioned earlier on, the partnership with Greenco that we have done. And another interesting partnership that we have is with Microsoft, where we are actually working with them on the complete analytics and digitization and on the weather forecasting, which is actually going to be a game changer, because the business we are in terms of meeting the requirements of the grid, we need to schedule our power. And for that, weather forecasting is very important in terms of a 15-minute time cycle. So that partnership is kind of very, very important for us, and it's kind of a breakthrough. Hopefully, we are able to get some good solutions out of it. So these are the two distinct ones that come to my mind.
Great. Super. Thank you. Akhil, moving to you.
I'll name two such examples from oil and gas world. First is on the upstream side, where I think we all know that India was struggling a little bit on the HPHT fields. After some international companies have come in with private parties, I think we have seen the results that new gas finds are coming to the place. So I think very successful partnership there. Second one is if we move backwards in city gas space, where I come from, 20 years back when we started, there was no kind of as such the whole knowledge was missing on how to start and where to set up. Then that time BG, which was British Gas, was brought in, and everybody won with that partnership, and they exited with maybe 100x the investment, and also the Indian companies benefited, and you see where we are after that learning kind of. So I think partnership only works when it's win-win, and I think there are multiple such examples we can take kind of. Yeah,
excellent. No, thank you for sharing. And Saloma?
Well, no disruptive collaboration or partnership, but a very good example of a innovative partnership. And I should mention this actually, and I wanted to bring the academia here in as well. This is a partnership or collaborative study that we did with Heriot-Watt University based out of Scotland in the United Kingdom. We are dealing with mature fields in Assam, and we want to increase our production as well as recovery from the fields. And one of the ideal methods for that is enhanced oil recovery. And for enhanced oil recovery, one of the most suitable process is CO2. Availability of CO2 was a problem in Assam because there are no such big industries in the vicinity. So with the minimal amount of CO2 that is available in the market, how do we at least make it workable? So we took up this innovative project as a joint industry project with Heriot-Watt University. First 3 years, then another 3 years. And then we came up with a novel technique where a very limited amount of CO2, say 10% or 8% of CO2 in the water stream, can give you good recoveries similar to enhanced oil recovery project. So that was a project which was very, very innovative, came out very good results in the lab. And that has prompted us and encouraged us to go to the field. And now we are already in the process of implementing this in the field. So that's one I can really think of, and that's a collaboration with academia where it helps the industry actually.
Fantastic, and I think that, it's a very interesting example because an important part for us to also ponder on is not all great collaborations have been between two business houses only. I mean, there have been umpteen number of examples where people have tied up with academia, communities, NGOs, and whatnot. We'll probably cover some of that briefly going forward as well. Vinay?
So, yeah, I'll take two quick examples, one from the past, which I was personally involved in, one which is developing now for the future. So there was, as a service provider and a technology player, there was some technology which we really wanted to, utilize in a certain country, which was getting difficult for us to penetrate because of extreme levels of localization, nationalization, and lots of concerns about IP leakage. And what we did was finally find a reliable local partner whom we were willing to work with. And that partner made all the capex investment to manufacture the technology provided by us locally in that country, do all the marketing and sales channels themselves. and then very tight boundaries on how we would monetize that. But if everything would move well, then every 2 years we would increase the technology level to be introduced in that country, right? And this is now 5th year of that partnership, and luckily everything working by the book, and the technology is getting propagated, commercially working well for both partners. So this is an example from the past around technology access. And one which is developing now is very much in line with what Mr. Rajarshi Gupta mentioned on the Northern Lights project. There is a very similar project coming up with Saudi Aramco in Saudi Arabia, where we are partnering with them to essentially become the hub. They become the hub of getting all the CO2 emissions, and then we capture and store it for them, right? And that, as I mentioned, Linde is our global partner for that, for the capture side, and we will do what we are good at, which is the subsurface piece, which is the storage piece. So this partnership is in action for the last 1 year. It's a long project, it's a 5-year project, but I'm very much looking forward that how the complementarity, as you spoke about, Saurabh, would come into play here, and we would deliver the ultimate goal.
Great examples from everyone. And, as I was listening to those, I couldn't help, realize that there's one underlying theme which is also emerging. There could be larger national objectives, let's say Atmanirbharta in our case, and which could be met with these strategic partnerships. I mean, one example that comes to mind is the International Maritime Industries, or IMI, which is a JV that Saudi Aramco has formed along with Bahri, which is their national shipping company, Lamprel, which is a construction and fabrication player, along with Hyundai Heavy Industries from Korea. The end result is they've created an entity which is into building rigs and ships and vessels, and also servicing them, doing a lot of localization work. It directly helps the industry as well, and a fantastic example of how collaboration between different companies has really created value. So with that, and again, Vinay, I'm coming back to you because there's one more thing I wanted to kind of check with you, which is another key success factor for these partnerships is the way they are structured. Because unless the risk and the reward are balanced, you would not really have what would be a truly successful partnership. So anything that comes to mind on how you go about doing it, given the number of partnerships that you've been doing?
Sure, Saurabh. So, I'll take a recent example from India itself. There is an operator who was operating 31 contracts across their OPEX environment to keep the field running. And then they had this idea that they would like to combine these 31 contracts into one, so that the service provider can come and integrate. And we were luckily the winning party for this contract. But to execute it, we needed to align a lot of services we were doing internally, but we needed to align lots of services which are coming from the market. And that's where this partnership of aligning to the ultimate goal of the operator, which was to lower the cost per barrel, really came into play. So we aligned them on the lowest cost per barrel, but also on additional production. If we were able to add production through this new partnerships, we were able to agree with them a cost per barrel, which we will be able to get as a bonus to be able to do that and increase the efficiency and increase the productivity from the field. So this was a very unique concept which has recently been done. And then one example I'll take from about 10 years back, where we were really being a vendor to a provider in Russia. And the E&P operator called us in, and actually the opening statement of that discussion was that we want to upgrade you from a vendor to a partner. And we were drilling this ultra extended reach wells, where the most important concept for the operator was to finish the section in one run without pulling out of the hole, because each pull out of the hole was 4 days in time. So they realized that if they are able to incentivize us, there was no malice in this deal, that if they are able to incentivize us to drill without pulling out of the hole, they would save $3 million in just not pulling out of the hole and drill shoe to shoe. And they were ready to give us $500,000, and these are real numbers. They were ready to give us $500,000 bonus if we would drill that ultra long section without pulling out of the hole. And we were very motivated to do that, because my invoice suddenly went up by 25%. And the customer saved $3 million, right? So I guess to answer your question, if we are able to incentivize looking at the ultimate objective in which both parties feel that they are getting something from the monetary point of view, that would be the best way of structuring these partnerships.
Fantastic, fantastic examples. And if I may, go back to the audience and say that the takeaway, one big takeaway, hopefully from this conversation has to be that to make partnerships successful, you need complementarity, the right balance of risk and reward, and some amount of innovation and co-creation coming in from both sides. I think that is what a lot of the examples that have been spoken about bring about. Now, just kind of moving to a slightly different level, and this is going to be addressed both to Rajarshi and Saloma. We've spoken a lot about business-to-business kind of partnerships, but there could be partnerships where community-related elements are involved. And I know for a fact that, in both your organizations, you've kind of done that very successfully. So very in short, if you could share, an example.
Yeah, this is a very essential part, and I will give you 3 quick examples. It's actually the same: Colombia, South Sudan, and now Mozambique. In Mozambique, we are doing a project which is larger than the GDP of the country. And if you do not resettle people, if you do not educate people, and you do not do their capacity building, reskill them, and build them into your workforce, then we can't be successful. We realized this very early in the project. So all the facilitations are in place. Thousands of people are being trained to come into the LNG construction time. And in South Sudan, we actually distributed our Jodhpur limbs from the mines disruption that happened. In Colombia, our people have learned Spanish, they have learned the culture, they are working with the communities there because all the vendors are local vendors. So we said that if you have to be successful in a country so far away from India, just acting as a contractor, the mantra to success is that we need to build partnerships with the school children, with the professionals, with the community, all of them.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Saurabh, this is a very important point. You have actually hit the nerve when it comes to operations. The government and the statutory bodies may give you the license to operate. Now the question is, your biggest stakeholder, the community, have you got the license to operate from them? Because that is where it is going to make or break your project. And I think there are numerous examples around the world where you can see where it has not worked. And that actually happens to be our forte. So we have been operating in the oil and gas industry for the last 100 years, and we understand the pulse of the people, we understand the pulse of the community. And as a public sector unit, it's mandated by the Department of Public Enterprise that we should at least spend 2% of our profit after tax on CSR activities. And we are very proud to say that we spend close to 5% of that, I mean more than 2.5%. Because we feel that this is really mandatory. The numbers don't matter at all. What matters is if I lose 2 days or 2 weeks of my rig time or production time, that is going to kill me actually. And for an energy-starved nation, each and every barrel counts. So we do a lot of proactive CSR as well. So if we go to a new area, like suppose we are going to Tripura, we already do a initial medical camps for all the people in the community in the area. Before going to Rajasthan, we run free eye camps and all. And with all the CSR activities that we do as a company, the feeling we have seen, I mean, you will see advertisements of Oil India Limited as a E&P company or an oil and gas company. And there you will see the people saying that Oil India Limited is a people's company. So that has to be brought into your stakeholders of the community, in the community. And I'm telling you, things are going to be very, very smooth after that.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to put each one of you in the spot again, and this is going to be a 20-second answer each. If you had a magic wand, and if you could forge a dream partnership, a dream consortium to solve what could be a big challenge that you're facing today, what would that be? And Rajesh, I'm going to start with you again.
Difficult question, but if I just let my thoughts go wild, I increasingly believe that we should not do transactions. If we can build energy corridors between complementary needs across nations, across firms, across entities, across vendors, so these energy corridors can cater across the value chain. It can be upstream, it can be green energy, it can be hydrogen, but we are always still talking in parts and pieces, bits and pieces. So this energy corridor concept, if we can bring in between nations, between companies, and wherein we offer them the Indian market, they offer us the upstream, we give them innovative ideas on green energy. This is where we can do that, bring in technology. I think that would be a dream come true for all of us.
Fantastic. Thank you. Shiv?
Yeah. In terms of accelerating the energy transition, I think if all stakeholders, including the government and we as participants, are able to establish a clear and transparent mechanism by which we could establish tariffs and allocate the regions to develop through a cooperation and a partnership mode, I think we'll be able to accelerate the energy transition in a much, much faster way.
Thank you. Thank you. Akhil?
I'll speak of more of energy industry, and I think one area which excites me and we would make a partnership is battery storage, because this is one thing which can be a game-changing thing for the world, and if that's a space where we need to work on more.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, well, India has been primarily an onshore company, although we have had limited offshore experience in the past. So if you say a dream game-changing partnership for oil, for me, would be to have a good experienced offshore partner, because currently our aim is to go offshore big time. So that's one partner that I would really be looking at.
Perfect. Thank you.
So,
Vinay?
Saurabh, I have to, congratulate for this innovative question. In my mind, I think the energy sector in general is not digitized enough, I feel. And so I feel the next partnership of significance from SLB point of view would be something around digital. We have been using physics-based models to forecast for last 90 years. But I think going forward, the utilization of artificial intelligence. So a company which is very good at AI, which we can marry with to use our physics-based models to probably set the boundary conditions, but use AI as the main power tool to find the answers would probably be the next big partnership.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinay. And we are done with, we are already past our time. Obviously, I would have loved to engage more, and I'm sure so do the panelists, but we are out of time now. And I hope the audience had a good time listening to this conversation. At least my big takeaways here were that strategic partnerships have helped the energy sector in the past. They continue to do so, not just restricted to one area or one particular part of the business, but impacting, on topics which are critical, also impacting communities, impacting the overall industry. And last but not the least, whatever you may do, there's always an opportunity to do a lot more. I mean, the 5 examples that we heard from this group, if some of those partnerships were to really come to life, you probably would see, the next level transformation happening in our energy sector. So thank you to the panelists for being such wonderful panelists and for their candid views. Had a pleasure speaking to each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.